In this world, we will have trouble. There will be pain, there will be suffering, there will be difficulty. Today on the Working Cows podcast, we're going to talk to Dalton Darnell about his new podcast, The Art of Suffering. How do we do it well? What is the difference that Jesus makes in our suffering?
There's times in my life where I've regretted the company being named that, because it's like, dang it, dude, who picked this as a mantra? You know what I'm saying? But there's a reason why we suffer. The difference is that I have a reason to suffer and they don't.
We're also going to talk to him about the importance of how we view the world in the way that we approach our suffering.
Like the enemy's trying to kill, steal, and destroy your family and you. So if you're not fighting that sucker every second of every day and combating what he throws at you, you're going to get your freaking butt whooped.
And the value of our community.
You have to have a group of men that choose to say, I am not going to sit here and let my brother fall. Then you have to have the entirety of men decide to take the position of what you say to me isn't offensive. It's for my good.
All that and more on this episode 435 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by the South Dakota Grassland Coalition and Ranch Right.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. Very excited to be joined by Dalton Darnell from 310 Ranch Life. You may be familiar with the YouTube channel, but Dalton has also recently launched a new podcast and a new YouTube channel along with it. And the name of that podcast is The Art of Suffering. We're going to talk to Dalton about how he has been dealing with a chronic illness and autoimmune disorder, and the role that his faith has played in helping that. And this is going to be obviously relevant to everyone because we all experience on some level suffering. How do we do that well? That's really what we're talking about today with Dalton Darnell of The Art of Suffering and 310 Ranch Life. But first, a word from our sponsor today, the South Dakota Grassland Coalition. If you're in the business of managing livestock, you've probably experienced drought, shortage of time, not enough help, and hefty debt. But facing one or even all of these challenges doesn't have to leave you worrying about how you'll make it through another year. Learn how to increase stocking rates, extend your grazing season, increase plant diversity, retain moisture in your soil, spend less time and money on weed control, and much more at one of South Dakota Grassland Coalition's grazing schools. During this intensive 3-day program, area producers, along with presenters from state and local agencies, combined hands-on activities in the field with classroom-style presentations to walk you through the steps necessary to create a grazing plan that suits your unique operation. Reserve your spot at one of the 3 grazing schools today at sdgrass.org. Dalton, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as I said prior to kind of recording here, been an admirer of the work of 310 for a long time. Really appreciate the work, the content you guys put out. I don't think I've bought a rope from anywhere other than 310 in quite a while. So a customer as well, and got 4 kids that follow me around to brandings during the season, and so outfitting them as well. So, but new venture, or at least relatively new venture, started the Art of Suffering podcast, and wanted to talk to you about that as well. So can you tell me a little bit about that podcast and how it got started?
Yeah, you bet, man. So I appreciate it. Appreciate your business and the support. It's always cool when people watch the videos. You know, we really enjoy making them, and it's fun when people watch them. So, and we get to visit about them. The Art of Suffering deal, honestly, man, I've had a friend of mine for years that's been telling me I need to do a podcast for 310. And if I'm being completely brutally honest, I was like, man, I just don't have anything to talk about, you know, because a lot of the stuff, and as you'll see in the later episodes of the podcast, like when I have my friends on or people that I've met online or whatever who are other cowboys, we always end up talking about other stuff other than cowboying. You know what I mean? And so because we showcase our lives in the way that we do through the internet, through video and storytelling and all the things, I just don't have that much to talk about when it comes to cowboy. And it's like, man, if you want to watch me cowboy, like there's hours of stuff out there for you to watch, you know? And so he said to me, we were having like a really hard time with the company and just a lot of things were changing. And my buddy Daryl, he's my best friend in the world. He's never cowboyed, never gonna cowboy. He's a video editor as well. He's a kind of a content creator for a big ministry. And anyway, he told me, he says, you need to go back and read Philippians 3:10, because that's where the name of the company comes from. And he was like, remember what it's all about. Like, go back to the beginning. And so I went back and I read the verse, and in the verse, it says, for our determined purpose is to come to know the King and to share in his sufferings in order to be transformed into his likeness. And I was like, okay, so the goal for 3:10 in the beginning was to really just create an environment where we can share and showcase the unique talents of other people, our horses, the job in and of itself. But a deeper seated goal of that was to just do life with other people. And because since I've been diagnosed with arthritis and I hadn't been able to go out and cowboy like I used to and all of those things, I really shifted the my mindset a little bit with the podcast to try to walk with people from this chair, if that makes sense. So that was kind of the heart behind it, was like, okay, well, we're all suffering all in different ways. And I feel like men in particular find themselves on an island with this quite a bit. And so I just kind of wanted to offer a little bit of hope, shared lessons and mistakes, you know, where it's like, hey, man, we're all on the path together and you're not sitting out there on an island by yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. Yep. I think, as you said, you hit the nail on the head, men, especially agriculture, guys in agriculture too. You know, I think there's probably even another layer where there's less vulnerability, less openness, less transparency in those relationships, at least until I think that it's kind of both ends of the spectrum. The guys that you know on a surface level, you know, there's less of that, but the guys that you know really well, there's maybe more of that in other places because you've gotten through that outer layer and you've gotten below the surface, and then there's that deeper connection. So yeah, I definitely see that being true. So you mentioned the arthritis diagnosis. Is that rheumatoid arthritis or what kind of?
No, so I have what's called psoriatic arthritis. Okay. So it is arthritis of the small joints. So it's going to be hands, feet, lower back. And it's also paired with a skin disorder. So psoriasis is a skin disorder, and 30% of people who get psoriasis get the arthritis. It's just kind of a freaking weird thing. I don't know. I've been to a bunch of doctors over the years, and honestly, about 3 years ago, I quit taking all the medication because the dang side effects are just horrendous. And so the gym has always been super helpful. I basically looked up what was going to happen to me. It's like, okay, well, if this is what I got, what's coming? And basically all of the associated illnesses with this came from getting fat. So I was like, okay, just don't get fat. You know what I mean? So I started hitting the gym really hard and like trying to stay in there. And oddly enough, when we went to Wyoming for that season, it completely went away. It's unbelievable. And I don't know if that's like God was giving me a gift so I could cowboy out there and have fun and not hurt all the time, because the miles out there, dude, are just, 25 miles a day is just not happening. So, not here anyway. But but when I moved back down south, it came back, and It's just something. It's not like I'm completely crippled or anything, and I can still get on a horse and rope if I need to, and all the things. And my hope is to have a little preconditioning yard here, a little spot here. But in Alabama, I can zip around 150 acres with a feed truck and click out some feed, and then doctor, 15 head, and then be done before lunch. Where I can still get all my other rat killing done. In Wyoming, that's not the job out there. So it's two totally different environments. But yeah, so I'm off the medication, which is cool. I take a lot of supplements and stuff, and stay in the gym. And anybody I talk to about it, that's kind of what I tell them is like, get in there, pick up heavy things. It doesn't matter that it hurts. It's not broken. It's kind of like a sprained ankle, or a jammed finger. Like you can still play. Or work or do whatever. It just is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Ranch Right. We've all been there. You've watched the YouTube videos, you've read all the books you can find, and you've listened to some compelling episodes of various podcasts. You're in. Grazing is going to save the ranch. And while that might be true, there tends to always be a bigger problem. A bad gross margin, even with increased turnover, is still a bad gross margin. And with a bad gross margin, if you increase turnover, all you're going to do is go broke faster. Don't be a grazing zealot. Focus on profitability. After all, it's possible to outbusiness a bad grazing plan, but you will always struggle to outgraze a bad business plan. Bad business is just bad business, plain and simple. Don't get stuck there. Ranch Right has a team of financial experts who help you focus on profitability and ranching right. Use their actionable financials so you can create generational wealth and become a profitability zealot rather than a grazing zealot. If you are ready to see the power of good business and profitability, head over to ranchrightllc.com to book your free consultation now. In your mind, and I think that all of life is struggle, right? We're constantly in a battle, whether that's with our flesh or the world or the devil or whatever, or illness, or it's at the end of the day, like you said, we're all going to be suffering in some way, if we're conscious of the ways that maybe we're less than the image of Christ at this moment. Then we're like, well, that can use some work, right? Is that part of what 100%. You're thinking about?
Yes. So that's what Philippians 3:10 says.
Right.
If you're going to become like Christ, you will suffer.
Right.
That's a fact.
Yep.
And I've regretted, there's times in my life where I've regretted the company being named that, because it's like, dang it, dude, who picked this as a mantra? You know what I'm saying? But it's a reason why. There's a reason why we suffer. And that's what's important to me. Just going through life. And I have discussions with believers and non-believers and all sorts of people. The fact is that they're going to suffer too.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is that I have a reason to suffer and they don't. And that makes it suck even worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what if you went to the gym every day and killed yourself and then nothing happened? You didn't get stronger. You didn't get more fit. It's just, you're just in there killing yourself. Well, to me, that's kind of stupid. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, and that's the thing, I was just on a call, part of a podcast collective that I'm in, that we're just trying to make our podcast better. Mm-hmm. And, one of the gals in there was talking about what she's doing, and she's trying to help people who are dealing with this certain type of issue, and I'm being vague intentionally, but anyways, and she's got her own set of solutions. Well, I'm like, you're taking a biblical practice and divorcing it from the lordship of Christ and trying to still get the benefits. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I see that so much in like the mental health space when I go to ranching conferences or agricultural conferences, and they'll have a talk about mental health. And it's like, yeah, I know probably the people you work for won't let you say Jesus in this context, but you really need to say Jesus in this context. Like he is the one, right? He's the guy that you got to invite into your suffering and fill up, like Paul said, also fill up in your flesh what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ. And And there is nothing lacking in his sufferings, but there's lacking in my flesh. My flesh is lacking. And I can take comfort in the fact that Christ suffered and he knows what suffering is like and he promised to be with me. I mean, that's part of what this art of suffering is, right? Is coming to some of those realizations too.
Well, 100%. And that's kind of it's, when it boils down to it, in the second episode of The Art of Suffering, which I have multiple episodes on like listening, like Spotify or whatever, but on the YouTube channel, we're just on episode 2. And in episode 2, I talk about Ephesians 2. And in Ephesians 2, the first 3 verses talk about how we all deserve wrath, right? But then it says, in verse 4, it says, but God in his infinite wisdom and mercy saved us. And so what this allowed me to do is throw away all the other bullcrap that the world says you're supposed to be, and you just love people with the understanding that we all deserve wrath, and I do, you do, everyone does. And so you just love them and you walk with them. And I'm the same way. You can't hardly listen to somebody talk about a mental health problem and not interject Jesus. Like if you know him, he's the answer. Okay, there's no other answer for anybody who thinks there is. You're wrong. I'm sorry. And it's just facts. It's a fact. That is the antidote, because all of the other isn't going to heal. You're not going to not suffer. Everyone is. So the fact is that once you have your why, well, then you can walk in that confidently, go love on people, be a good dude, and just walk with folks down the road. And that's what, my heart was changed towards the Lord through work, through working with other believers and other men that I got to see be real. And I never got that in church. Still haven't to this day. Tried quite a bit, honestly. And so for me, I feel like God treats me like a using horse. Like, hey, me and you are going to get together and we're going to go do a job. I'm going to ask you to walk off into the world and be who I made you to be. And that just so happens to be a guy that's pretty rough around the edges, blunt, straightforward, and that I think he needs that sometimes. He needs that person to be able to walk out and do those things. And so that's what I strive to be as far as that goes. But when it comes to changing other people's hearts, like the point is that guy up there talking about mental health, saying to people who don't understand you need Jesus. Well, they don't understand that. But you take that same person that doesn't understand that and you stick them in this chair, this saddle next to me all day long, they're going to meet Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In one way or another.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally think that I understand what you're saying. I think that one of the things that frustrates me is so much, and I work with students quite a bit. I spend at least a week, if not a couple of weeks every summer with kids under the age of 18 at a camp that we run. And one of them, one of the things that I'm hearing more and more frequently is the issue of anxiety. Well, there's a verse for that. Be anxious for nothing, but in all things by prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known to the Lord. And that's not like hey, this is a good idea. No, it's in the imperative voice. It's a command. This is what you have to do. If you're gonna survive this world, you can't go go through life anxious for every little thing that comes your way. And then the next verse is, and the peace of Christ will rule in your hearts, will guard your hearts. And somebody pointed that out one time, and I meditated on it for a while and thought about it, and like, but the promise of the peace of Christ guarding your heart only applies if you are being anxious for nothing, but in all things by prayer and supplication, making your requests known to Him. If you're not doing that, then you're not going to have the peace of Christ. You are going to suffer. You're going to suffer alone. You're going to suffer for no reason, right? Like you said, you're just going to go in the gym and kill yourself, and you're not going to get fit, and you're not going to get strong, and it's going to stink. So that's the I think that's the point, right? We got to use the scripture as it was intended to be used and not cling to promises that are contingent on us actually doing what the scripture said to do.
100%. And I would say a big failure on my part is losing the focus, not maintaining my focus on that this is a minute to minute thing. So like when God says, or when the Bible says that, you're supposed to pray and offer your wants and everything to God in order to lose your anxiety, that's not a one-time deal.
Yeah.
This is every freaking minute of every freaking day. And I will be the first to say that the whole point of trying to be honest and almost fluid in this thing when I'm talking with either another person or just to the camera is to share that I fail at that all the time. So it's like the way it goes, if I wake up in the morning and get up on time, go to the gym, kill it, get a little Bible reading in before the kids get up, and then lose focus, and then by lunchtime, I'm just, because my day has sucked, you have to regain your focus. You have to go, okay, why am I getting so angry? And this is every day of my life. You know what I mean? Or you wake up late, you don't go to the gym, you feel like crap, you're like, okay, all right, what matters here? You know what I mean? And so I think what a lot of people do is they go, okay, they open the book. All right, Jesus has saved me. Now I'm a believer. Close the book. I'm good. Well, why do I still feel like all the time?
Yeah.
Because you lost your focus. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so those are the types of things that I think once you find yourself in a community of believers who aren't just preaching love and cotton candy and rainbows, that are like, we're freaking warriors, buddy. We're here to freaking fight the enemy. Like the enemy's trying to kill, steal, and destroy your family and you. So if you're not fighting that sucker every second of every day and combating what he throws at you, you're going to get your freaking butt whooped. And so you find these people's lives end up like this. And this is a minute-to-minute thing, right? You're like, oh, yeah, God is good, blah, 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 blah. And then 20 minutes later, you're flicking a dude off in traffic. You know what I mean? It's like, and so understanding that gives you a whole nother way to maintain your focus and being able to offer yourself grace in times of like, okay, I'm angry, I'm having a hard time, And so I talk about that a little bit in the podcast, if I remember correctly, but it's like with the suffering thing, it's like, okay, I'm feeling all right. I'm getting my stuff done. And then you wake up one morning and your back's slam crippled and you're just angry at God all day. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Why is this a thing? I'm 30 years old, what is the deal here? And you have to constantly take a hold of those thoughts in your mind and capture them and go, okay, this is my cross to bear. All right. And we are going to bear it well, So I think focus is something that people have a hard time with nowadays. And you can blame anything you want on that. But the fact is like, if your focus shifts from where it's supposed to be, like your horse, I'm sure most of the people that listen to this podcast are familiar with horses and horsemanship. And one of our main principles is focus, feel, timing, and balance. Okay. What's the first one? Focus. Focus. Yep. And 9 out of 10 times, I can 10 out of 10 times, honestly, if it's a horse that I've ridden a lot, I can focus on something with my eyeballs, never touch my rein, and he goes there.
Yeah.
Just because I'm focusing on it. When I'm running to a cow, freaking focus on the back of that cow's head, and that sucker will put you there.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times, if your horse is running off with you or not focused, it's because you're not focused, Same thing with God. If you're not focused on him, your brain is going to run off with you, and the enemy's going to get a hold of it, know?
Yeah. Man, what are the illustrations in the scripture for the Christian life? It's war. It's war.
Mm-hmm.
The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds. Ephesians 6:10-20 about the armor of God. All of it. It's all a war. It's all a battle. And what happens if you don't focus in battle? You get your head taken off.
Yep.
And I think that is so true, man. I probably have never told this story on the podcast, but I spent like 15 years in this prison of shame over something I said in the course of a best man speech. And like, I'd be walking across the Walmart parking lot and I'd be like, dang it. And out loud, I'd say it. And my wife's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing, and just me beating myself up. I didn't even say the second part out loud. That's just what it was. And it wasn't until somebody came and spoke at that camp I was talking about earlier and talked about how we need to forgive other people. Otherwise, we're going to just live in this prison of unforgiveness. And I said, sometimes the other people we need to forgive is ourselves. And I learned that it's every day. And I said, how do I go about this? I asked the guy that was speaking, I said, how do I go about this? And he said, out loud, as often as you are able, when that thought crosses your mind, just say out loud, in the name of Jesus, you have no right to accuse me of that failure. That sin is forgiven. And he's like, even if you're in the Walmart parking lot and you're going to sound crazy, do it out loud as often as you can. And I started doing that, and it changed my life. 15 years in this prison of shame to the last 3 or 4 years of actually making progress in my Christian life. And it was partly just taking that battle mindset of every day I'm going to fight, and it's going to be a war, and I'm not going to give up, and it just totally changed my life, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about. You've got to, don't lose focus, don't get distracted, stay engaged in the fight.
It's funny you tell that story. So I've been shooting, I started the podcast a long time ago, and then it kind of fell off, and I was undisciplined, and we got the rope shop here, and I got an office. So that's where we are right now. And I've never had an office before. It's pretty cool. I have to share it with Madison, and she's fantastic. So as soon as I started posting them, okay, we started the 310 EDU channel. I started posting the podcast again. I'm talking about the enemies crawling all over us like white on rice, son. And so I got the flu. My wife got the flu. The kids have been sick, they're teething and screaming and freaking all this stuff. And the other morning, so my kid woke up, my 2-year-old woke up and had thrown up. And then my wife got the stomach bug. And so I took my 6-year-old to school, and my 2-year-old is throwing up in the car seat. And my wife's at home puking. Okay. Now, have you ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the Fellowship of the Ring, when they're in the cave and the demons chasing them, and they're on the bridge, okay, and Gandalf hits them with that "You shall not pass."
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? He slams the staff down. On the way home, this kid's throwing up in the back seat, and son, I am talking about dropping F-bombs, chewing Satan out. I am like, son of a buck, you ain't gonna pass right here. Out loud. In a slam fist fight, you can go on and get after somebody else, in the name of the Lord, I rebuke you, and the way that, what's funny is my problem has always been, you go to church, man, and down here, I don't know how it is where you're at, but down here, all they preach is love and just, it's man, that is not the freaking world I live in. That is not the world, okay? We're not talking about... Now, does Jesus love us? Yes. And I love my sons, but I make their life hard for a reason. You know what I'm saying? We're out here raising men, baby.
Yeah.
So, if you never talk about the warfare, where's a fella supposed to get it? Well, freaking Lord of the Rings, man. Gladiator, Braveheart. Dude, these guys here... they're not giving everybody a hug and a kiss on the cheek on the way to battle. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they're freaking men,
Yep.
you know? And so I just, maybe it's a false depiction, but that's the depiction I have of myself as God's son is
Yep.
like, while I am supposed to protect the weak and love everybody and all the things, when it comes to fighting, which is my primary job,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to look like. We're going to be gnarly, dude.
Yeah.
Just slam men, a unit, you know? And so when it comes to talking about this stuff, especially with other men, it's like, this is what we're made to be, man. You know, put the armor on, but like in your brain, it's real armor.
Yeah. Yep.
It says in the Bible it's the word or whatever, but hey, buddy, we're putting helmets on here. It's time to go to work, you know?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that we have to look at it that way. It's gotta be that kind of an approach to life. You cannot, you know, I think the reason why the church in America has struggled is because we don't look at it that way. We don't look at it as a war. We don't look at it as a fight. If it is a war at all, it's a spiritual war. It's not really real that you can touch it, and you don't really know how to fight it with these actual tools that you've been given. And so it's not tangible. It's not something that you can see. What did Jesus say? He said, "I'll build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." What are gates for? They're for defending things, right? That's to keep stuff out. Well, where are the gates? They're on hell, and we're the ones busting down the gates. We're the ones advancing. The same with the armor. The armor is not defensive. It's all on the front. There's no armor on your back. There's no armor on your back. There's no armor for retreat. There's only armor for going forward. If you look at the armor in Ephesians 6:10 through 20, there's only armor for going forward. It's all offensive. So, and we haven't had that posture. And I think that's why, to your point, we've been getting our butts kicked individually and on the whole in the culture for the last 50 years, 60 years.
Well, and I think the key, there's two keys to me. You have to have a group of men or women, either way, that choose to say, I am not going to sit here and let my brother fall, right? But then you have to have the entirety of men decide to take the position of what you say to me isn't offensive. It's for my good. Right. So last night I was doing a podcast with Richard for The Art of Suffering. And I said in it, if you're fat and lazy and sitting on your couch, you need to get up and do something. And then I had to explain myself. I was like, okay, I'm not saying that I hate fat people because I've been fat. What I'm saying is being fat and lazy is no good. Get up. It's to hold you accountable, right? It's to say you are built and made to do better. And then, but what you have nowadays is if you were to go into a church house and say that, you're going to get in some trouble. It's going to be a problem.
Yes, sir.
So the fact is like, not only do we have to be bold enough to say a spade is a spade, but the person who's bold enough to say that also needs to be able to take one off the chin and go, you know what, you're freaking right. And that's the whole point. And I say in the deal all the time, like, I don't know anything. I'm not here telling you how to be or how to succeed in life. I am on a path, and I have failed more times than not. And if I can share that failure, wisdom is the wise application of failure. So take it for what it's worth. Let it help you down the road a little bit. All I'm trying to do is be willing to share it, because I think that's the biggest failing of a father is never allowing your kids to see you fail or trying not to. Because how am I supposed to learn how to fail if I don't ever watch my dad fail? Like, you're supposed to initiate me into manhood. You know what I mean? So without seeing you suck at something or struggle or whatever, how am I supposed to know how to react when I do it? You know? And that goes for any mentor to another man, you know, like the men around you. If you're the kind of guy that is too prideful to fail in front of somebody, you have to look in the mirror on that deal, you know? So that's kind of that's part of the heart behind the whole thing is like, I've sucked at a lot of things in life and I've done a lot of things wrong. And if I can just offer a little bit of that or all of it, if somebody can come and get a little bit of that, I'll say it all, but whether you sit for the whole hour or not is up to you, you know? That's a way of helping a guy down the road. And this kind of came about through the roping. Like I've progressed probably as fast or faster than anyone else in the world when it comes to roping. I didn't rope anything horseback until I was 25 years old. And so, but I attribute the video to probably 70% of that learning. I mean, I've not only got to go and rope with some really handy people, but I've also gotten to film them and watch them over and over and over again. And so it's like watching game tape every day because I'm the video editor. It's what I do. I make cool videos. And so I see the nuances in all of it. And so it's no different than sharing your failures in life with other men or people coming down the road. It gives them an opportunity to go, you know what, man, I'm not going to run that red light because you already did it and I ain't got to.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that is so important. That piece about being able to fail, being willing to fail, and owning it when you do. I've been asked before a couple different times about advice I'd give to young parents to be my oldest is 16, my youngest is 10. And I always tell people, first thing I always say, repentance. You need to be able to repent to your children when you blow it. And last Sunday, spoiler alert, full disclosure, I'm a pastor of a church. So last Sunday, I preached on taming the tongue. And Sunday afternoon, I used a unkind tone with my daughter. And so I come in the house, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. That tone was not right. Please forgive me, you know, but that's how that goes, you know. I mean,
well, how are they supposed to know to do that if you don't do it?
Right.
It's genius.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. But if you say, I want you to follow Jesus, as that's my wife and I's goal, our kids that follow Jesus, right? That's what we pray every night in bed, is that they would grow up to love Jesus. But if what they think following Jesus is that guy's a jerk and he never apologizes for it, do you think they really want anything to do with that?
No. No. Well, and I say really all the time, like probably more than I should. The problem with Christianity is Christians. I mean, that's the turnoff, dude. That's where not even 99%, it's 100% of people who are like, I hate Christianity, are not saying I hate Jesus. They hate Bill down the road that beats down the doors at the Church of Christ and then screams at him for touching his lawn. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they hate about it. And if Jesus ran the church, then everybody'd go. That's the point. And there's something to getting with other believers that are like-minded and not like-minded, that are just believers, and having discussions about, you know, holding one another accountable. And for myself, you know, what that's looked like for me has not been in the church. It's been in real life, because what I've found and down here is it's a lot of hypocrisy, right? It's fake. It's just surface, maybe not fakeness, just surface, right? You don't go in there and air out your crap, you know, but when I get in a small group with men, and they're talking about the biggies, right? Like lust, freaking porn, anger, like the things that will destroy a man's life, that will destroy his children. Like, and you really get in these actual conversations with folks, that's life altering for young men, in my opinion. It has been for me. Like, my granddad was a pastor. And of course, I would go listen to him speak. And he was a marriage and family counselor. He's a fantastic mentor. He's an absolute sage in my life, you know. But those conversations weren't had when he was standing behind the pulpit. You know what I mean? They were sitting in his living room. They were fishing. You know, they were squirrel hunting.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have this video, dude, I'm gathering in Wyoming and I'm riding this freaking jug-headed puke, dude, just a big jug-headed sucker. And I'm looking, I got like 15 head in front of me and I'm looking out across the fence there to the wild blue yonder, and the sun is just cracking over the mountain. And I just start praying out loud. And I'm like, God, I don't know how I've gotten to where I am, but thank you so much. You know what I mean? Because that's where I feel them.
Mm-hmm.
Like in college, I fished for a school down here and I traveled all over the country in fish tournaments. And in the morning, when that sun started peeking over the top of those trees, is when I was like, man, the king is the king, baby.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one, you know. I really value honesty, you know, and I value people suffering and I value them showing it because you can't learn anything without showing it.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah. And the answer, you know, to the issues with church and everything. And I mean, Jesus did his fair share of turning people off too, right? Flipping over tables and chasing out the money changers and ultimately getting crucified because he would not stop telling the people that they were hypocrites and all those things, right? I mean, all that. But the answer to all of those issues with people and their problems and their hypocrisy or surface level not going deep isn't necessarily just to say, well, the church isn't for me. It's to create that community. And then, I mean, when you create that community and it centers around this kind of a lifestyle, I think then that's a church, right? People
Yes.
that get together, fellowship, try to make each other better. I tell my church quite often, fellowship isn't when we stand around for an hour after the service and talk. Fellowship is when I see a character trait in you that makes me want to be more like Jesus. That's fellowship. You know, fellowship isn't just the fact that we're near each other talking. It's that I want to be more like Jesus because of the time we spent together today.
Yeah.
Than I would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's...
It's funny. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, every single person on earth has a Christ-like quality. Like if you look hard enough, you can see it. Even non-believers, I mean, you name it. That, like if you're looking in there, like I got some family members that are nurses that are not believers. Okay. But the ability to go in there and serve people and do what they do, that's Christ-like. They don't even know it. You know what I mean? They don't even know that's what they're doing. Yep. But when you start looking at the world in that way, it becomes quite obvious. And I probably have very few Christ-like qualities, and that was my hesitation on becoming a believer for a very long time. Was like the depiction that I was given from the church was like, there's no way I can be that. You know what I mean? There's no way. And that is not true for anybody who feels that way. That is a lie from Satan.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, that just goes back to being made in the image of God. We're all made in his image. And so there's going to be some of those attributes that shine through just because you're made in the image of God. And so people are going to have those different tendencies. So, great conversation. We could go on a long time, but I do want to just kind of hit some of the high points of what you think are some of the keys to suffering well.
Okay.
And I mean, kind of the outline of the podcast as it's been released so far, I think that's kind of what you're doing is building the case of this is how I approach this topic, right?
Right. So, for me, one of the biggies is maintaining a positive mental attitude, and that's easy to say, hard to do. So, I do really well with finding the silver lining, so to speak. So, if I can see the benefits, right, or even fabricate them, then I'm okay. I'm good at suffering. And I'll just give you an example. I've used the gym a lot, but this time I'm going to use the gym is the easiest example for this, but the arthritis is something that's a personal thing for me. So I am like I got a big motor. I like to go. I like to have a goal. I like to accomplish things. I like to stay busy. Having small children is not the time for this. Okay. If you want your wife to be all right with you, once that sucker gets here, you better chill out. You better chill out on your own goals and have an understanding that what you wanted just got tabled for a while. And so my son came and I got diagnosed. Man, he's probably a year old. So it's been about 5 years. So that's about right. And what arthritis did is it slowed me way down. Like, not really my mind. I still have lots of goals, but my ability to just go, just, it isn't a thing. And what it's done is it's allowed me to enjoy them, to enjoy this time with my wife, to enjoy my small children. And there's been a lot of days that I've been angry about that. Like, why did you give me? I cannot go and do, And then I kind of came to the realization like, man, I don't really need to be going and doing. I just need to be a dad, And so that's one way, is find the silver lining. I don't care what it is. And there's some stuff out there that's way harder than arthritis.
Yeah.
Your kids dying or cancer. There's a lot of things that are way worse, but there is a purpose for your suffering. 2 is I find great value in being very realistic about it. So when I know something's going to suck, I have no problem saying out loud, man, this is really going to suck. But one interesting fact about cowhands in general is most of them are good at suffering. They're good at it. Not only are they good at it, but they freaking like it. It's like the worse it is, the more they want to do it. It's like, man, you want to go tag calves or you want to go rope that maverick bull on the neighbors? Oh, let's go get the bull, And so I've always found that very interesting. And I find that within myself to a certain degree. And there's lots of gathers in Wyoming that I was like, this is going to suck, But then when you get through it, having the understanding that climbing the mountain, so to speak, is there. I mean, there's some weight to that. There's a story to that. And so that's fun. So if you have this understanding from the beginning of your suffering that the pushing through of it will transform basically every part of you, there's value in that. There's value in just that. And so that's how I try to maintain a positive mental attitude through it, is not only finding the silver lining, but then being realistic. Like, this is going to suck, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm a monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I think those are great pieces, of advice. Where kind of understanding, hey, God allowed this to come into my life. And so it can either make me miserable or I can get to know him better through it and see what he was doing through it, like slowing you down. Like my example is always, could I transform my land faster by moving my cows 4 times a day? Yeah, I could. Would I also have to neglect my family to do it? Yep, I would. So am I going to do it? No, I'm not.
No. I totally agree. Yeah.
So what are some of the other keys? I mean, we've kind of talked about the value of somebody to go through it with, right? In the course of this, are there other things that kind of come to your mind in that regard?
Well, it's funny, like when it comes to an autoimmune disease, like you can't see it. So it's very difficult, even for like your spouse. It's like when you can't see it, you can't see it. And so it was funny, man. I told Daryl this week, I started reading Psalms, and I've never spent a whole lot of time in the Old Testament. But it's funny. I was like, man, I just don't really like relate to Jesus. And I told him, I was like, it's not that I don't love Jesus. It's just that I'm not perfect, and he was perfect. And that's hard to relate to. It's kind of like your baseball coach like when I teach people how to rope. Like, sure, they want to emulate me, and I wanted to be like my ball coaches, but could I at the time? No, there's really no comparison to someone who's just learning how to rope and then watching me rope. So I was like, okay, well, I need to find a dude in the Bible that loves God and freaking grinds, dude. Is like kind of a dink. You know what I mean? That like makes a lot of mistakes. And so I was like, all right, King David. We're going to read about King David. And dude, the first stuff I started reading, I was like, holy crap, I'm just like this guy. Like, I'm very similar to this guy, you know? And so that, when it comes down to it, when you're called into a battle, and that's what suffering is essentially, it's very important to know that people have won these battles and they've already done it. You know, they've already pushed through what you're trying to push through. And it's not just King David. There's millions of people that have lived already and fought the good fight and done well. And so if you go at it with the frame of mind of every good thing you see in life someone do is a lesson. Every failure you get to watch is a learning opportunity. And if you can transform the way you look at the world into from a critical one of like, okay, I'm going to look at this guy over here with his horse and he's doing all this crazy stuff with this horse. Well, all you're doing is learning, I don't think I want to do that. That horse doesn't look comfortable, right? So that applies to every single part of our life. And that helps me out. Being able to read about King David and being able to watch other people, it really allows me to go, okay, so, you know, I've heard it said before, I don't know where it says this in the Bible, but it talks about how much God loves David. You know what I mean? A man after his own heart or something like that. I might be talking out the side of my neck.
You're right.
But if David was a man after God's own heart, then I can be one too. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That helps me out.
Yeah. I was standing around talking to some guys one time, and I don't know how many of them would actually claim to be Christians, but a couple of them had gotten to where they were just starting to read the Bible and were asking some questions, and they're like, "These people are messed up." I'm like, "Yeah, God uses messed up people because there are no other kind."
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
That's all there is. So that's what he uses. And the glory of God is that he accomplishes his work through us, that even though we're not perfect, he still gets things done through us. And that's where he gets the most glory. And so that's why he chooses to use people that aren't what the world would look at and say, that's the guy. Tom Brady, you know, or whoever, you know, the Adonis. But anyways, yeah. So, Dalton, really appreciate your time today. You mentioned the 310 EDU channel, kind of a new venture there. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, pretty much my YouTube guy is Daryl, my best buddy. And so he encouraged me to start a YouTube channel just for the 310 EDU stuff. So on that channel, that is where we're going to host the Art of Suffering podcast. So that's where the episodes are getting posted. And then additionally, I'm just posting, you know, stuff on roping. So my hope is I got some lease ground here in the working, so my hope is to kind of venture into some instructionals on the preconditioning side of the deal. Well, you know, kind of what it's like to do that here. Doctoring, obviously, roping, obviously. And we still have 310edu.com, which is the full educational website. So this is going to be kind of an excerpt of that, where I'll be offering tips and tricks and kind of my take on things. There's not a ton of videos on there yet, but we're kind of working towards that. But I really just wanted a place to host that podcast that was just full of people hunting education, open mindset, like you're wanting to learn new things. And not only am I sharing my life failures, but the roping ones as well. So, if I just posted all the video I had on my computer of myself being terrible at roping, people would learn a lot from that, because I sure have. So that's kind of the goal there. And it's been good. It's going good. I think we started it about a month ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. And so 310edu on YouTube, and then 310edu.com is still your home for the best educational videos that I know about.
Yeah.
anyway.
Tell me about the 310edu.com. What's kind of been the growth of that library over time?
Yeah, man. So we started out with one-man doctrine because that's kind of what we did. And that's probably will be a lot more of that if I can get my deal going here because I'll be doctoring by myself. So, but then we ventured into two-man doctrine, three-man doctrine. We cover all the events we do. I do a lot of voiceover work in there where I just kind of break down people's shots or like mostly the people that work directly with us. So like anybody that knows us would probably know Abby. So if we go to a rope and Abby throws a good shot, I talk about the good things about it. If she throws a bad one, I talk about the bad things, and I'll do that for myself and for Dad. But we also have some content creators on there. So we have a dog guy, we have a leather guy, we have a guy that shoes horses, and so they have instructional videos on all of that stuff on there as well. So like if you want to learn how to make a pair of leggings or a martingale or whatever, Carlos from Lost Buckaroos on there doing that. And then Jason from Diamond J Stock Dogs is our stock dog guy. But yeah, it's really just a one-stop shop. If you want to learn how to throw a turnover, hands down the best turnover instructional on earth. No questions asked for the forehand, the backhand. Really, any shot you've ever seen me throw on social media, there is a video dedicated to that on there. And if there isn't, email me and I'll make one. So it's pretty cool, man. It's a good source for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. We go through all the drills we put our horses through, and then all the drills we put us through in order to learn how to do what we do.
Very cool. Links to all that, and I'll be in the show notes page for today. You can check that out and get links to that. So, Dalton, thanks for your time today.
Hey, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very good stuff there with Dalton. Really appreciate his perspective and kind of how he has come to understand the ways that he can suffer well and endure hardship and gather himself with a bunch of people and share in that as well and hold each other accountable and challenge each other to pursue more and more higher degrees of faithfulness in following Jesus. So very much looking forward to the next episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll be talking to Eric Fuchs and Brian Doherty of Understanding Ag about how do we manage water quality. How do we keep track of, not only the water quality on our own operation, but then really this is an issue of loving your neighbor, right? How do we love our city cousins with good water quality from the land that we are managing because it's impacting them as well. So look forward to sharing that with you coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.